Hello, America. Hey, it's Big Lou here, coming to you from the Old Guy Network in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And boy, am I stoked today, because today is the first episode of our video interviews with business professionals around the country. And our first guest today is featured in our topic of good design, and that's a good friend of mine. I've known him for over 40 years, Dan Mossien. So you're going to love this little discussion that we had. So sit back and enjoy it, and we'll talk to you at the end. Our guest for today is Daniel Lee Mossien, registered architect and president and CEO of Mossien Associates in Rochester, New York. Dan established Mossien Associates in May of 1994 after having been an owner of a 100-person full-service design firm. He's an expert in the practice of architecture and has been a firm principal since 1979. Under his guidance, his firm has worked throughout the country and Mexico for mostly private high-end. One of his specialties is consulting with the legal and insurance community for both plaintiffs and defendants regarding construction, real estate estimates, hazardous materials, slips and falls, mold and air quality, and other problems related to building sites, both public and private. Dan has both a bachelor's and master of architecture from the University of New Mexico. He was a recipient of the AIA School Medal. He's a registered architect in states of New York, Florida, Texas, Utah, can further his registration at any time with all the other states in less than 2 weeks. He's certified by the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards. He has a New York State certification as an asbestos inspector through Tufts University. As a graduate of the School of Design from Harvard University and golf club design and site planning, his background is wide varied. Dan's professional awards and civic involvement include either the Rochester chapter of Construction Specifications Institute Outstanding Project Award, the American Institute of Architects Henry Adams Fund AIA School Medal. He's been university published 6 times. As a member of the Builders Exchange, he's received their Craftsmanship Award twice. As a member of the AIA, he's got their first design award twice and a number of other awards. He sits on numerous not-for-profit boards. A good friend of mine for over 40 years. Dan, the show.
Well, I really appreciate it. I hope we're going to have some fun today, Lou.
Well, I understand you're sitting in Florida right now. You and Carol have officially become snowbirds, I guess, right?
Right. What they call it here in the village is we're part-time because no one likes the word snowbird. But we're here.
I got that. Well, let's get right to the questions, huh?
Yep.
As someone who spent nearly 50 years as a design professional, what inspired you to pursue the goal of good design that you've spent the rest of your life working at?
Well, I received my first drawing board when I was 7 years old, and every Sunday they'd have a house of the week, and I drafted to quarter scale and make some corrections here and there. And I've been creative all my life, and art and music and just doing things. I just absolutely love it. It's a hobby I get paid for.
It's amazing when that happens, right?
Yep.
It happened by accident, obviously. You know, in the early years of your career, were there times when clients or colleagues or anyone tried to get you to lower your standards? And how did you deal with that?
I didn't run into that much. And if it did happen, I'd kind of leave the team because I have high standards, and there are architects who will lower their standards, but that's not me.
You know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do in order to get a job. Did they ever try? Were there times when they tried to get you to maybe take some shortcuts, avoid them altogether?
I think I was carefully choosing clients that I wouldn't think would do that. The right clients and the private clients. It hasn't really happened to me yet.
Well, but how about when you were younger? I mean, you gotta eat, right? So you had to do some sort of work. Tell me a little bit about what you were doing back then.
Well, back when I started, it was house additions and houses. And then I got tied into Bausch and Lomb to do a lot of their work. Did 3 corporate headquarters for them. I even worked in Korea on a project for them. And I've worked all over the country and all with private clients. Years ago, I stopped doing any kind of government work at all. One project for New York State, the only one I've ever done, it took 13 months to get paid. Most of my private clients, I don't even quote them a fee. I just do the work, go beyond the call of duty, and they've been extremely happy. 2 of our bank clients just love working with us, and we love working with them.
Tell me a little bit about that first job that made the difference, that job with Bausch and Lomb. What was that?
The first one we did was a recreation of a new cafeteria that was 40,000 square feet, and it turned out great. Everybody loved it. And we went on to do corporate headquarters for them. Then we went on to Gould's Pumps headquarters, Gleason headquarters, and just started out cranking out corporate headquarters.
Okay, so the first job you did for Bausch and Lomb then was a cafeteria, and you said you were recreating that. Now that's an interesting thing. What did you do to recreate the cafeteria?
I basically built a new one, and we were converting the old one into workstations. That's back when Steelcase was first doing workstations. And it was my first project ever with workstations. I don't think they'd been built before that. So we basically built a brand new cafeteria, all new equipment, furniture, everything. And the whole plant was kind of stunned when they walked in the brand new one.
I'll bet. How long was the former cafeteria in place before you used it with brand new stuff?
Since the 1950s.
Wow.
And it was kind of ugly and dirty, and it just needed to go away.
You think that's important in the workplace to create that kind of a welcoming atmosphere? How do people react to that?
Well, when they first would walk into Bausch and Lomb as an applicant and they saw the cafeteria, they'd probably go elsewhere because it was totally dated. We redid the front entrance to the building and basically started tuning up the entire building. It was fun.
Well, and it's funny how that works, right? Because you get started with a client, and once they like what you do, it seems like the cost of sales has gone way down, and now you just put your head down and keep going, right?
Yeah, one of the neat things we did once was built a new building for Leroy schools. It's actually the only school I've ever done from the ground up. Most are renovations and additions. If you think about it, the people in the bars and grocery stores, yeah, he went to New Mexico, so it's going to be an Adobe school. And then someone else said it's going to be a 6-story stainless steel. So what we did, it was our first dab at actually doing a computer helicopter flyover and walk through the school. And we walked in the front door, and you could see exactly what we were designing, the beautiful skylit atriums. We walked through the cafeteria, went down the corridors showing the school colors and the lockers, went in this huge, beautiful gym. And it was so amazing. It was shown in the grocery store the entire time they were open, and people would stand there watching the television.
Wow.
And then at the ribbon cutting, everyone came in like, oh my God, this is what I saw in the grocery store. So we kept growing with technology to try to keep ahead of anybody. It's the first school I'd ever done where everyone walked in just smiley and happy. It was great. But I don't do public schools.
I don't know if they
anymore.
smile when they walk into school anymore, though.
No, it's hard to see them smile through a mask.
Well, could be. Now that you've spent your lifetime running a business, how are things different today than they were, say, even just 10 years ago? And how have you adjusted to that?
Well, the big difference today is people with an architectural degree, which is 5 years minimum, don't want to get registered. And I don't understand that. And my guys say, well, I don't want to do what you do. I want to be in the computer creating, drafting the stuff we create together. So it's a lot different. I don't think anyone has the ambition to start their own firm and, work 80 hours a week like I did forever. It's different. I interviewed a kid years ago and I said, now you know that we frequently do all-nighters, work weekends. And the kid said, no, you don't do that anymore. And I said, why? And he said, the professors all say that's old school and you don't do it like that anymore. And I said, well, what does that mean? He said, well, you kind of come in at like 9 and take an hour and a half for lunch and leave about 4. And I said, how do you get 40 hours out of that? And they said, well, the professors say, you don't need to put in 40 hours. That's ridiculous. Just go in when you want. I said, okay, nice meeting you. See you. And pushed them out the front door. It's just become so different.
Wow. I guess I shouldn't be surprised because that's what this program is all about. This program is about life experiences and not theory. It's interesting that Dad's been in business, gosh, nearly 50 years, and you're seeing these kind of things take up. I imagine it's quite a challenge.
It changes so fast. I used to do $500 million worth of public schools, and I hadn't done one for a while. And a friend of mine from Penfield School said, you got to be on our list. We just love all the work you've done. I said, oh, okay. So I put in a proposal with a fee. And I got a call from her a while later saying, well, we're not going to interview you. And I said, why? They said, well, your fee was 8% of construction costs. I said, yeah, and it's really tough construction. It's reconstruction, removing asbestos. And they said, well, I won't mention the name of the engineering firm. We're giving it to so-and-so for 3.5%, and you're double that. And I said, okay. And I ended up 2 years ago suing that firm because the project was a total disaster. And I think that the disaster I discovered in the lawsuit was they were working from 3 different offices. And one office said, do that entrance like Roberts Wesleyan. Well, the kid cut and pasted the Roberts Wesleyan into their drawings, but forgot to change the title block. And they left the other firm's title block in, or the other office.
Wow.
So there's so much that going on. I don't do public schools anymore. I don't do any public work. I'm 100% private clients, with the exception of some not-for-profits that I do on the house because I support them. But it's so different these days with fees.
Well, that goes back to the first question or the second question, about clients asking you to lower your standards. So there's a perfect example how that backfires when that happens. And, we talk about it in the Genesis plan. In fact, this is the first chapter of that, which is good design. And we talk about how that evolves. And it's interesting that you point out taking those shortcuts lead to a disastrous result.
I've been on 3 lawsuits for public schools involving the architect, engineer, and the construction manager and clerk of the works. And what I walk into, I can tell off the bat, it's a total disaster.
Right.
And I don't like that, which is why I don't do it anymore.
Well, my hat's off to you for taking that position, because it's a difficult challenge when you're out there trying to keep, people employed, especially people who have been dedicated to you. And that leads me to my next question. Assembling a team is important in any business. And I think that it becomes one of the larger challenges. So tell me a little bit about what special attention that you've made in assembling your team and how you went about it.
Okay. When I was with my big architecture and engineering firm, we had teams, the A team, B team, C team, D team. And A's did country clubs and corporate headquarters, and B's would do public work, and C's would do schools. Actually, I put B for my team for colleges work. And I went to a state ed interview once, and someone said, well, we had a firm send their E team interns. And he said that was a disaster. So what teams do you have? And I said, an A team. He said, well, what would you do for, other types of works like a shopping center? I said, the A team. He said, well, where are your other teams? I said, the A team. I don't hire B's or C's or D's. I hire the best people I can find. I always say to my employees, when you wake up, if you're not dying to get to work, you got to change careers. You got to be dying to get to work. And my guys are, they're just, one guy works 50 or 60 hours a week. He comes in at 6 a.m. And so you don't really have to kill yourself. He goes, killing myself? I'm having a blast. And I even had some little soft pellet pistols in the office because he'd come in on Saturday with his 2 kids and set them up in the library with targets so he could be with the kids. It was a pretty cool thing. Now that they're older, I don't have guns in the office anymore.
Well, I guess that's a pretty good set of goals to make your entire team want to die to get to work. That's interesting. I love it. Yeah.
And plus we do, we'll have pizza once a week, and we had a bowling party at Oak Hill for Christmas and just do cool stuff. It's fun.
Well, that's important. And then, that team, that's something you learn as a child. You don't, that's not something that happens just because you're in business, of course. So a lot of people have difficulties getting their arms around things like that. So let's talk about the commitment to your business, and what that's meant for you. You're still working.
Yep.
You're like this old guy. So, I mean, we're kind of the same boat. I don't quite understand how that works out. 50 years ago, I didn't think I was going to have to do this 50 years. I didn't actually think I'd be here 50 years from now. But at any rate, tell me a little bit about your commitment to your business and how it's changed over.
Actually, my commitment grows every year. We keep having more fun and getting better clients. Here I am in Florida, working on this PC every day. Before I came down here, I wanted to make sure all my guys were on board with Carol and I not being there, because Carol works with us too.
Sure.
And they're all, go ahead. So one of my guys, Jeff, would come in and we'd sit down with a bank drawing, and I'd help him tune it up and do some red lines, but face to face. Well, I've got it set up in the office. I have a huge TV screen, and the staff sits in the conference room and talks to me. So it's like you and I, when we used to have beers or something, we were this far apart, and we could actually have a beer now. But so we're totally connected. I'm connected like this with all the boards I'm on. We don't have any more in-person meetings, and it just works great. So I can work from here with clients every day. If I get a call about a new client, I can scoot back in a plane for an interview or whatever we need to do. So it's like I'm there. It doesn't bother them at all. They probably enjoy it that I'm not looking over their shoulders all the time.
Well, that's amazing, because if we were to just have this discussion even a few years ago, we would say, are you crazy? I'm not going to do that. That's not going to work out like this. But you're right. Now, I want to tell our viewers, just for the record, when he said that his colleague, Jeff, would come into his office, he would talk about a bank job. He wasn't talking about a heist now. He was just talking about redesigning a bank. And
right. And here I was talking about guns. I was talking about
he's
guns
talking about guns and masks and all. It has nothing to do with anything that's related to any illegal action. And in terms of whether or not you and I can have a beer here,
or a bourbon,
maybe we can have instead of a beer
and a cigar.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of leads me to my last few questions. Now, I know you're not a cigar smoker.
Once a year in the golf course.
But I know you like to smoke a pipe. So tell me a little bit about what's your favorite tobacco that you put into your pipe.
I used to live next door to the chairman of the board of RG&E, and I was in college, and I'd come home with all these bizarre pipes and mixtures of tobacco. And all. He goes, when you grow up someday, you're going to smoke a corncob pipe and smoke half and half tobacco. And I said, oh, that half and half, you kidding me? He goes, I can guarantee you'll do that. And I said, why a corncob pipe? He said, they dry out nicely. They're always fresh. If they're not fresh, you throw it out and get a new one. and half is just no perfumes, none of that crap, and it's cheap. So guess what I smoke? Corncob pipes and half pipe tobacco.
Well,
He
just
was
for our
right.
viewers, the RG&E is the local utility in Western New York, Rochester Gas and Electric, which is now owned by a large multinational corporation. But living next door to the president of RG&E, you hit a really lucky guy because your electric's never going to go off.
And you know what I also learned by default? They had a dimmer in their dining room, and I didn't know what a dimmer was. And I remember when you dim it down, you have to click it so it's off. They didn't click it, and they were away for the winter in Florida, and their house started on fire.
Wow.
And the investigators found out it was the dimmer, and it had just been heating, because when you use a dimmer, it makes heat of the electricity the bulb's not getting. So it heated up the stud cavity, started blacking, and then started on fire.
Wow.
And it burned out most of the inside of the house with a beautiful Tudor, and they saved the outside.
Leave it to the architect to remember that story, right?
Yep.
All right. So one last question. Now, I know you like your whiskey. What's your favorite go-to whiskey when you do that?
Doers on the Rocks.
Okay,
Scotch.
so you're a Scotch guy. So I remember when I was a kid, that was our go-to drink. So now I'm a bourbon guy.
Right.
Would you agree then that as a design professional and people, a person who's been in public hearings, that no presenter of a proposal to a public hearing should be allowed to do that presentation in front of a public board without having at least 7 or 8 full straight shots of whiskey before you do that?
I don't think I'd be presenting much.
We were at a couple of public hearings where I wish that I had about 5 or 6 of those, I think. So,
right.
anyway.
Now with Uber, you can have 5 or 6 when you're done.
Well, there you go. That's the important thing. We don't have to drink and drive, right? Well,
You know what? One thing I didn't want to pass over, but I think the biggest coaching I can do is for the young guys. And my guy, Jeff, who's a fantastic guy that doesn't want to get registered. He's got 2 kids in high school. And he said, to go back to take the exams, I'd have to study like mad. I was the second architect in Rochester to pass my exams the first time. That's how difficult they used to be. But I studied all day Saturday and half day Sunday. So I had a half day off that I didn't study. And I went in and I just wailed. So the second guy, but now they can, it'll take them your first year, you can probably pass them. But when you're 15 years out of school, there's way too much to try to remember.
great advice for these young people. And I think that hopefully we'll have young people watching. This is what it's all about. It's about sharing our experiences and perhaps now that we've gotten to this point, some people may listen to us, right? But
Right.
this has been a lot of fun, Dan. I really appreciate all your time and effort in this. And we're going to have you back again because there's way too much to talk about. But at any,
Right.
you know
what? I've got to add this one more point about technology. My daughter is a graduate architect, registered. She's with a multinational firm in Boston. So she lived in Boston. She'd fly to Chicago to go to Mozambique or somewhere where she was doing a hotel. And she went to her bosses and said, I leave here, I go to Chicago, I've got my laptop, all the technology, and I'm in Mozambique telling my team how big the hotel is going to be and all that. She said, I could move to Rochester a lot easier than from here. And since I'm rarely ever in the office, I'll come to Boston, once a month to meet with my guys and have fun. And so they made her the youngest woman associate in the firm ever. And she speaks all over the country, AI conventions. She did the AutoCAD headquarters in Boston, which was—
we're going to have her on next. That's
yeah. She started out as an intern with me and then intern with Bud DeWolf. And Bud had her working on a prison. And here she is an intern, and all of his guys are like, what the hell? It's Mossien's daughter. That's why she's doing it. He said, no, she's doing it because she's brighter than you guys are. So watch
There you
out.
go.
I love Bud.
Well, that's great. Well, anyway, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. And like I said, we'll have you back again to talk more about this because we have a lot of things to talk about.
Okay, Luke, count me in. It was great. Great to see you.
Yeah, same here. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. It was informative, entertaining, and Dan's a great guy. So at this point in time, just like I have in every other video, I want you to join us in our mission to make one person that you don't know smile every day. That's the end of the story.